with a diverse range of sectors. Let Martrate take you there. Take a step towards being export ready. Get equipped with the information and skills you need. We'll match you with buyers worldwide and help you build connections for you to be a global champion, offering world-class products and services. Get ready to set the standard and go further. Make a difference, because trade matters. The world awaits you. The time to export is now.
Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera, good morning, mabuhay, and welcome to Business Opportunity Webinar. Today's event is organized in collaboration of ASEAN Development Bank, ADB, and we are broadcast live from Manila, Philippines, and a few other parts of the world. I am Siti Azlina, your Trade Commissioner, Matrade in Manila. Together with me today are lines of well-experienced speakers of ADB who will be zooming into how Malaysian companies can seize business opportunity arises from either ADB-funded projects or its institutional procurement. We will also touch on ADB private sector funding as well as special green project financing. Ladies and gentlemen, if I proceed with our program, I would like to remind all the participants to remain attentive as the session is packed with useful information. This webinar is organized within a 2-hour duration. Presentations by the 3 speakers will take approximately 70 minutes. We have ample time for Q&A for about 25 minutes. I urge all to ask as much questions as possible to all of our speakers. Please type in precise questions and to whom it is directed to at the chat box. As part of Matrade's standard operating procedures, we will be emailing evaluation forms to all participants Alternatively, you may also scan the QR code at the end of the webinar later. Kindly provide your feedback, as this is important for us to improve for our future events. Well, without further ado, I'm pleased to invite Mr. Abu Bakar Koyakuti, Senior Director, Export Promotion and Market Access Division, Matrix Kuala Lumpur, for his welcoming remarks. Mr. Abu Bakar requires no introduction, being a seasoned senior official Matrix. Mr. Abu Bakar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Puan Siti Azrina, our Trade Commissioner based in Manila. Mr. Riza Mohsin, Director, Advisor, Board of Director for Brunei Darussalam, Malaysia, Myanmar, Nepal, Singapore, Thailand of ADB. Mr. Rustam Abdul Kayumov, Director, Procurement Division 2. Mr. Yuichiro Yoi, Principal Investment Specialist, Infrastructure Finance Division 2, Private Sectors Operation Department. Mr. Rodrigo Martinez, Project Origination Specialist for the ASEAN Catalytic Green Finance Facility and SERD Innovation Hub. Mrs. Chandra Arora, Procurement Specialist, Procurement Division 2. All participants, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and a very good day to all of you. First and foremost, I would like to thank all the distinguished speakers from the ADB for spending their valuable time to attend this discussion on the interesting topic, which for some of us will be an eye-opener. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to ADB's team for the support in realizing today's event and the effort taken by Matrix officials in organizing this webinar. This webinar is timely to provide avenue for new opportunities as businesses in general are still coping due to the pandemic. ADB, as one of the international development organizations, is no doubt instrumental in providing various financing and non-financial assistance to promote inclusive economic growth, environmentally sustainable growth, and regional integration among its member countries. And this is carried out through assistance in investment, either in the form of loans, grants, or technical assistance span across sectors, including infrastructure, transportation, energy, water supply and sanitation, healthcare, services, financial and public administration system, among others. As we aim to gain better understanding of what ADB has to offer in terms of its finance contracts and institutional procurement, the event today is hoped to provide insights on ADB's policies and procedures for procurement of goods and works, the recruitment of consultants, and the engagement of NGO and civil society organizations. At the moment, however, involvement of Malaysian companies in ADB-funded projects are rather limited. From 2015 to 2019, total contracts undertaken by Malaysian contractors amounted to US 26.9 million for goods and work, while for consulting services valued at about US 30.72 million. Among sectors involved include energy, transportation, water and urban infrastructure, development, agriculture, natural resources, and rural development. Ladies and gentlemen, Matrix have been closely engaging with ADB since many years back. I recall the day when I led a number of Malaysian contractors and service providers for an official visit to ADB office in Manila to discuss potential areas of collaboration. Since then, Matrix and ADB had few series of follow-up meetings. Thus, today's program shows the commitment by both organizations in continuously supporting Malaysian companies to understand and grasp opportunities made available through ADB financial facilities and tenders. We strongly believe that Malaysian companies can further enhance their presence in the global business arena by taking advantage of the existing strong business relation built between Matrix and ADB. Malaysian companies are urged to always upgrade their capabilities and profile in meeting international standards, as well as to keep abreast with current technology to make them more competitive globally. This will allow Malaysian players to easily comply and register themselves with ADB as among potential candidates for upcoming project invitation. Furthermore, this would enable Malaysian companies to have access into a wider global market, such as those of World Bank, IMF, as well as EBRD. Ladies and gentlemen, being the National Trade Promotion Agency of Malaysia, Matrix will continue to facilitate and make the necessary efforts for Malaysian companies and service providers to bridge and develop mutually beneficial trade partnership, not only amongst ASEAN business community, but also amongst other business community around the globe. Matrix will continue its effort in providing businesses, especially for Malaysian companies in all sectors and industries, to transcend the pandemic by providing platform to share their expertise, capabilities, and capacity of supplying a wide range of products and services to global market. In addition, what is most important is that we must join efforts strategically and work smart in preparing our construction and construction-related services industry players to be fully equipped to reap opportunities that are available. I'm sure our industry players, with all their seasoned, in-depth and wide experiences, will be able to lead their ways for this. To further strengthen the industry players, Matrix, on behalf of Malaysian government, encourages our companies to leverage on the financial as well as the non-financial facility provided by Matrix. One of the financial assistance provided by Matrix include Services Export Fund, SEF, which is to mitigate our company's financial hurdle in promoting their services as well as procuring projects abroad. This assistance is extended in the form of reimbursable grant. There are 12 different categories of export activities which companies must comply to obtain such assistance. Since the inception of SEF by Matrix, 305 Malaysian service providers have benefited from this program, with a total disbursement of 20.26 million. This shows that Matrix is committed in assisting and facilitating Malaysia's services provider in enhancing their presence overseas. Ladies and gentlemen, for today, let us take full advantage from all the experienced speakers in learning how to identify information on upcoming ADB pipeline projects, business and financing opportunities, as well as the best way to prepare responsive bids and proposals. It is my hope that after this session, there will be more Malaysian companies to register as an institutional supplier or consultant of ADB. Hence, we shall have more participation of Malaysian companies in ADB's procurement and tender bidding in the coming future. On that note, I would like once again to record my sincere appreciation to congratulate the distinguished speakers, all participants, as well as the Secretariat for your continuous support. I hope the event today will stimulate further interest and discussion later on. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikum salam, and thank you very much, Mr. Abu Bakar, for the speech. Next, we have Mr. Rustam Abdulkayumov. He is the Director, Procurement Division to Procurement Portfolio and Financial Management Department. Mr. Rustam Abdulkayumov has been with ADB for 20 years. His experience includes working on large and complex turnkey civil work and supply contracts in the irrigation, transport, urban and energy sectors. I would like to call upon Mr. Rustam Abdulkayumov from an introductory remark. Mr. Rustam. Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Rustam.
Thank you very much, Ms. Siti Azlina, and Assalamu alaikum, and good morning to our colleagues in Malaysia and to our colleagues from ADB in Manila and elsewhere. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual business opportunity seminar. And I would like to extend our thanks to our host organizations, Matrade and Embassy of Malaysia in the Philippines, for helping us in organizing this. As you know, ADB is a multilateral development bank whose aim is to improve the livelihood of its developing member countries in Asia and the Pacific. And our portfolio is continuously growing and new types of projects are being prepared. So let me share some statistics. ADB's current sovereign operation portfolio is about 102 billion. It means the value of all ongoing projects financed by ADB. In addition, we have about 15 billion in non-sovereign portfolio. Last year, ADB has announced a new package of $20 billion available to our developing member countries to support their effort in fighting the pandemic and strengthening their healthcare systems. 13 billion out of this amount has already been committed. And in 2020, ADB has provided 206 million for consulting services under ADB administrative solutions. These financed about 3,700 contracts with individual consultants and about 220 contracts with the firms. In addition to that, of course, we have many consulting services opportunities under those of you who have prior experience working with ADB, you may know that every year until 2019, ADB has organized so-called business opportunities fair in Manila. This was a good opportunity to network with ADB staff and to learn about ADB's business opportunities and the way how ADB works. The last business opportunities fair we had in 2019 was attended by more than 1,000 participants from all over the world. Last year, due to COVID-19 related travel restrictions, we could not host the business opportunities fair, but instead we have organized the virtual business outreach launch event. It was attended by more than 1,000 participants from 61 countries. The situation this year is still not very clear in terms of when everything will go back to normal, and therefore we'll continue with the virtual format, including business opportunities seminars as we have today. Last year, we have already conducted 34 business opportunity seminars in different countries, and we are happy to see that there is a growing interest from business communities. Today's event, at your request, will focus on ADB's operations covering private sector and green finance. We will also have a separate session on ADB's procurement processes and how to find the business opportunities. I am pleased to introduce our speakers. First is Yuichiro Joy, our principal investment specialist, who will discuss about private sector. After that, we will have Rodrigo Martinez from our Southeast Asia Regional Department, who will talk about ASEAN catalytic green finance. After Rodrigo, we will have Chandra Arora, our procurement specialist, who will be presenting on ADB's procurement system on how to find business opportunities, including those related to COVID-19. Our aim is to continue collaboration with the business communities around the world, despite the challenges caused by the pandemic. We value our cooperation with the business partners in the preparation and implementation of ADB finance projects. I hope you will find this event useful and that you will get to better understand how ADB operates. And finally, I hope it will help you with contracts under ADB projects. Using this opportunity, I would also like to invite everyone to join ADB's 54th annual meeting, which will be held from 3rd to 5th May this year. We will have series of webinars that tackle various challenges faced by the region. This year's the overall theme is collaboration for resilient and green recovery. You can register via the website, which will be shown on your screens, to get more information. And you can also get information from adb.org or any other ADB social media channels. So we hope to see you at our annual meeting this year from 3rd to 5th May. And in conclusion, I would like to wish you a good day and the productive deliberations today. So now I will thank Ms. Siti Azlin.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Rustam Abdulkayumov, for that introductory remark. Unfortunately, the line was a little bit choppy, but I guess we can pick, some of the important message that Mr. Rustam wanted to deliver just now. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now turn to our first speaker, Mr. Yuichiro Joy. Joy-san is the principal investment specialist leading a team covering infrastructure financing for Malaysia and Indonesia at the Infrastructure Finance Division 2 of Private Sector Operations Department. He joined ADB in 2014 and has been mainly covering Malaysia and Indonesia infrastructure projects. His recent works include Rantau Dedap Geothermal IPP financing and Jawa 1 Gas to Power project financing, both signed in 2018, as well as Riau Gas IPP financing and Pacific Broadband Satellite Project financing, both signed in 2019. Mr. Yuichiro Joy, the floor is yours.
Hello, can you see my slides?
Yes. All right, great. Go ahead.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for attending this seminar. Mr. Abu Bakar and Rustam, thank you for the kind introduction of the context. My name is Yuichiro Yoi. I represent private sector operations department, and I specifically cover infrastructure financings to projects in Malaysia and Indonesia. First and foremost, I think it is very important to note that there are two main pillars of operation in ADB. One is public sector operations, so-called sovereign operations, and the other is the private sector operations, so-called non-sovereign operations, which I come from. Public sector operations lend money to governments or sometimes to SOEs on a government guarantee basis. When governments or the relevant SOEs procure goods and services using the loan proceeds, ADB gets involved in the procurement process, and that will be explained by my colleagues in later sessions. In private sector operations, on the other hand, where I come from, we do corporate finance or project finance, sometimes called limited or non-recourse financings to private sector entities. Partly because the borrower is a private sector entity which has natural incentive to maximize value for money in procuring goods and services for the project. We don't get involved in the procurement itself. So the scope of collaboration between Malaysian companies like yourselves and ADB PSOD is most likely when you are the borrower itself who is implementing a project or a sponsor of a project, and in that ADB PSOD is one of the lenders. So in that sense, financing techniques, we are pretty much the same as commercial banks, and we will have similar terms and conditions as commercial banks, but we always sort of look for projects that has relevant development impact in the context of that specific country. If it's Malaysia, then we want to help Malaysia develop. If it's Indonesia, we want to help Indonesia develop. So with that in mind, I'll go into some more details. So we have 40 staff across 15 nationalities, 4 unit heads. I'm one of them. And this whole division is led by a gentleman called Jackie Sertani. So I cover in Malaysia and Indonesia, and I have 4 bankers and 1 assistant reporting to me. 2 are based in Jakarta, as you can see, and the rest, including myself, are sitting in Manila headquarters. Unfortunately, we don't have an office in Kuala Lumpur or anywhere in Malaysia, but after this pandemic is over, I do plan to travel reasonably frequently to Kuala Lumpur to look for projects. Over the past decade, PSOD have done 70 deals totaling $7 billion, catalyzing further $14.6 billion in co-financing. These spread across many sectors, but I would say we tended to focus a lot in power sector, both conventional and increasingly renewable energy, such as solar, wind, and geothermal. Some water projects, as you can see in China, and sort of Myanmar, some telecom projects, although Myanmar is a bit choppy at the moment. But a recent trend is to expand into more exotic sectors like agribusiness and social sectors such as education and healthcare. And obviously, healthcare is a hot topic due to the pandemics. So far, no project in Malaysia, primarily because the financing market in Malaysia is very deep and sophisticated to the point where, MDB like ADB is not really needed. In a sense, that is good. It's good in the sense that, the country is already developed, and we also wouldn't want to disrupt an already well-functioning private sector market. If anything, our target project in Malaysia will be something quite niche. For example, new technology or new business model that commercial banks or bonds wouldn't touch, because I know in Malaysia, the local sort of bond market, particularly sukuk market, is very deep, and almost all infrastructure projects are sort of financed on a sukuk bond basis, or sometimes commercial banks. But in any case, coming back to my original message is that the local financing market is extremely deep and sophisticated. Just to sort of give you some flavor of what kind of projects we have been doing at ADB's PSOD by going through some of the case studies. This one is a series of geothermal power projects in Indonesia. It totals to about 500 megawatt across 3 projects. Totaling, we provided $500 million from ADB and further catalyzed 1.5 billion of co-financing. These were done on a project finance basis, meaning limited recourse basis. So assessing geothermal risk was key, and it's really challenging because we are trying to determine what the resource potential is, and the resource is basically buried underground, 2,000 meters, 3,000 meters below surface. So it has its own challenges, but it's worth it because geothermal is such a powerful renewable energy source that can be a base load, unlike solar and wind, which are intermittent and therefore needing batteries to be base load. And batteries, of course, the cost of batteries are coming down, but still the cost implications is still such that it is quite expensive. I thought this was relevant in Malaysian context as well, because I know Malaysia also has geothermal resources, particularly in Borneo region. So if any of the Malaysian companies are investing in geothermal sector in Malaysia or outside of Malaysia, for example, Philippines or Indonesia, that's where we can come in and help finance your project. Because this is one area where the local sort of bond or commercial banks might hesitate to finance because of the geothermal risks involved. This is another case study from power sector. It's a floating solar in Vietnam. This was a corporate finance, and the project isn't that big. It's about 50 megawatt or 47.5 megawatt, but very sort of innovative, making use of the water surface of a reservoir that exists anyway. And again, I thought this was relevant because I know there are a few floating solar plants in Malaysia operating already or being planned. So again, this is another area where in a potential area of collaboration between Malaysian companies and ADB. This one is the one from Telecom. It was a project finance for a satellite project called Pacific. It provides high-speed internet connections to remote islands in Asia and Pacific. It's a cool project with many sort of hot companies involved, like SpaceX, who provided the launching service. Again, I believe Malaysia is trying to make the Langkawi one of the space hub for the country itself and the entire region. So I thought this was a relevant example for you. This one is a good example of a transport sector project. Project finance loans to build and operate 2 monorail lines in Bangkok, Thailand. It has obviously, 2 very important development impact. One is the climate change mitigation by encouraging modal shift from cars to mass transit. The second one is obviously sort of addressing urbanization issues such as traffic jams, sort of air quality improvement. This one is also interesting. We supported green bond issuance by a company, Filipino company called AC Energy. ADB can help on the green certification as well as being an anchor investor by acquiring a chunk of the green bonds, which is precisely what we did for this one for this case. We also, this is a very timely example. We did a COVID response transaction in China in the early days of the pandemic. It was a loan to China Gas to enhance gas supply to hospitals in Wuhan, where the pandemic apparently started, including the COVID dedicated hospitals there. So these are, of course, we've done many other projects across many sectors. These are some of the awards that we received in the sort of the financing world. Some of the famous one is IJ Global Awards, PFI Awards, just to sort of give you a flavor. We recently established what we call ADB Ventures, specifically to support and invest in early stage technology companies solving big problems in emerging Asia. For example, at least before the pandemic took hold, everyone was talking about how to make the ocean blue, particularly in terms of plastic waste. How do we remove or avoid the plastics waste going into the ocean to pollute the ocean? And some many technologies have actually been invented to recycle plastic or at least turn it into a fuel, a form of fuel, and those technologies sometimes are held or invented and patented by rather sort of small companies, which may not be able to hit the market with the technology. So that's where where we wanted to help by providing technical assistance or sort of seeds equity into those companies or technologies, and ADB Ventures was established to do exactly that. So that's one of the tools that we have for you in collaborating in Asia, not only in Malaysia. I'm not quite sure how I did on the time, but I would like to finish my presentation. Thank you so much. I'll be sort of looking forward to receiving questions from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Yushiro Yoi. Yes, you exceeded a few minutes, but it's okay. I'm sure there will be interest from Malaysian companies on the ADB venture support, which can be raised, questions can be raised during the Q&A session later. Well, our second speaker is Mr. Rodrigo Martinez. He is the project origination expert for the ASEAN Catalytic Green Finance Facility and Southeast Asia Department Innovation Hub. He has over 10 years of experience in originating, structuring, and implementing infrastructure projects. Mr. Martinez, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lina. Thank you very much, Mr. Abu Bakar and Mr. Ruslan for the introduction. Thank you, Yushiro-san, for the very comprehensive presentation on our private sector operation department. Let me start by sharing the slides with you. Hopefully this will come clear. Mrs. Lina, are these already visible?
Not yet. Okay, yeah, all right, we can see them.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. My name is Rodrigo Martinez. I'm working, as Mrs. Lina mentioned, in the something called the Innovation Hub, located in Southeast Asian Regional Department, which basically, as Yushiro-san explained, is the other side of the infrastructure financing from the back. So we're basically working on sovereign operations. And the role of the Innovation Hub is to try to work transversally with the different sector divisions within the department in everything related to green and innovative finance. But beyond that, we have also the mandate to manage the ASEAN Catalytic Green Finance Facility, or ACGF, which is basically a financing window under the larger ASEAN Infrastructure Fund. So just to give you a little bit of background, the AIF, or ASEAN Infrastructure Fund, is quite unique in its structure. It's basically a financing vehicle owned by all ASEAN governments, actually Malaysia being one of the biggest stakeholders, and also owned by ADB and managed by ADB on behalf of its members. The main purpose of the AIF is to promote infrastructure development in ASEAN region, and it was launched in 2012. After 6-7 years of operation with little equity remaining, the thought was how to utilize these funds better in a different way as it has been done in the past. And recognizing that ASEAN is one of the most vulnerable areas in the world to climate change and the infrastructure gap is massive still in the region, the idea was to launch a green facility that will promote sovereign infrastructure projects, but better utilizing public funds. And by this, I mean mobilizing additional partners co-financing, plus trying to get private sector mobilization at each specific project. So with almost 2 years since operationalization, we have managed to secure co-financing pledges from 7 partners amounting to 1.7 billion US dollars in co-financing. And these are mainly ADB, the very first, of course, the AFD, or French Development Agency, the European Investment Bank, European Union, German KfW, EDCF from government of South Korea, and then most recently the Green Climate Fund. Beyond that, we are working with knowledge partners such as the OECD, the Global Green Growth Institute, Infrastructure Asia, and then more internal within ADB, similar to our mandate as part of the CERT Innovation Hub. We are recognizing that green is a cross-cutting element across different sectors. We work mainly with our urban and water division, with our transport division, with our energy division, as well as with our environmental, agriculture, and natural resources division. Now, how does ACGF help ASEAN develop a pipeline of green infrastructure projects? Well, we basically have an integrated approach with 3 main pillars. The first one, as you can guess, is providing innovative financing to projects, to green sovereign projects, and this can come through or ACGF own resources, which is priced as a two-step loan, basically having a more concessional terms during the first 7 years of the project, where the construction risks are obviously higher, and then stepping up after year 7, where normally you will have your O&M or operation and maintenance already in place. And then on a project-by-project basis, we try to blend with co-financing partners to either try to blend down the cost of financing to our development member countries, or to provide co-financing volume when the project requires so. But beyond that, a critical element is to try to help projects being developed since the very beginning and try to embed the green and private mobilization aspects within a sovereign project, which is certainly the most challenging thing. And we do so by helping our sector divisions with TA grant support for either early stage project preparation or during feasibility study, basically looking at what are the climate assessments and baselines that we need to have in a project, what are the costs, benefits, and suitability, overall feasibility of different technologies, green technologies within a project. And lastly, we also try to assess each specific project, looking at the specific subcomponents, and trying to build at least a roadmap to try to catalyze private, institutional, or commercial capital into a project over the first 8 years. Additionally, we work extensively also in knowledge, capacity building, and policy. Perhaps to highlight here, similarly to our PSOD colleagues with more private-driven issuance, we are working with sovereign governments, state-owned enterprise, and even moving now to municipal, to try to help them create roadmaps to an issuance of green, sustainable, social transition bonds. And just to highlight, last year we worked closely with 2 Thai agencies, and we managed to help them to issue the first sustainable and social bonds. And that work is certainly catching attention in the region now with some ongoing support to Indonesia and the Philippines. Now, beyond this, what is the specific criteria that we need for a project to be able to tap into ACGF and co-financing? Well, we will do a detailed assessment within ADB sovereign. What are the green elements? We will look at both mitigation and adaptation, and we will also have a climate plus approach. So we certainly will measure environmental sustainability indicators. We need to see that by availing ACGF and co-financing partners, the project will helpfully transition from non-bankable to bankability. And then, as mentioned, we need to have that clear roadmap of having private sector coming into a specific project at the first 8 years. Now, for anyone that has further interest, you could certainly access the link to our investment principles and eligibility criteria. And now, not to go into the specific results that we have got during this pilot phase, but just to highlight that we managed to fulfill most of this. But I think relevant is to highlight the very nature of ACGF, which is to be a catalytic fund. And as it's shown in the slides, with 3 projects being approved by the AIF board for inclusion in the pipeline, and with very little resources, with 40 million committed from ACGF, we will help 1.4 billion in the 3 projects to reach to financial closure. We are bringing 400 million of co-financing from other partners, and we will also help transition private sector mobilization of around 300 million to this project. As a result, also in terms of climate impacts, this will reduce 73,000 CO2 tons equivalent per year, and there's also additional adaptation co-benefits. Now, let me take just 2 minutes to talk about the recent new partnership to ACGF, something that makes us very proud. So around mid of last year, in the midst of the COVID outbreak, we started discussing with the Green Climate Fund in Korea around the idea of trying to develop a green recovery program for ASEAN. And in a matter of 8 months, I think certainly one of the quickest proposals, we managed to secure only last month GCF board approval for a programmatic approach. And what this means, basically, ADB will be able to manage 300 million, consisting of 280 million in loans and 2 million in TA grants, to help projects within the department that are green, that fulfill the same criteria as ACGF, access very concessional funds. And this will despite being a drop in the ocean, if I may say, considering the real needs of the region, it will be used under the very same catalytic principles. It's a revolving structure, meaning once the full set of 280 million loans have been allocated to projects, the money will flow back to ADB and we will finance a second round of investments. So the project will likely span over 15 years. And overall, we hope that by using this 300 million on top of ADB financing and ECTF financing, we will be able to support a $4 billion in projects. Lastly, under our broader mandate to try to promote green infrastructure projects in the region, we developed this tool called the Rapid Assessment Study, which basically tries to help projects at the very early stage, at pre-feasibility study stage, by providing financial structuring support. This could come either from line ministries, from provincial governments, municipal governments, private sector sponsors that are working with government, and there's some potential, some angle from private sector participation. And it's very fast to disburse. So basically, in terms of eligibility, likewise, it will apply. We need the projects to be under our green taxonomy, but and have some available data in terms of pre-feasibility studies, CAPEX and OPEX. But we will be able to allocate 1 or 2 consultants over 2 to 3 months to try to not only help provide or develop a bankable financial model, but also to try to assess the different financial sources within the full suite of ADB products and services to try to help these projects either to sovereign lending pipeline from ADB or even accessing to our PSOD colleagues, OPPP, our private public partnership department. So overall, just to launch it there, if there's any company interested and have an ongoing project that are very early stage, we'll be very happy to assess what is the project specifics and see if we can support it forward. Let me conclude by saying that I have a strong belief that our work in ECGF will help the full spectrum of companies working in green infrastructure. I think there will be, under the sovereign lending part of the bank, more opportunities for consultancy companies, for engineering companies, for technology providers, for general contractors, even for private developers and banks. I think with this, I will conclude by one recommendation for those willing to look into the sovereign pipeline. Beyond the CMS, registering and having access to the full opportunities in terms of consultancy, a very good starting point will be to really look into each specific country operation business plan, which is available in ADB website, and will give you a very clear picture of the 3-year rolling plan of the sovereign operations that the government has confirmed interest at. So that might be a good opportunity to really identify projects, technologies, and through further screening, you will be able to reach who is the project officer. On our side, happy to answer any questions and explain forward. Thank you very much, Mrs. Lina, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rodrigo Martinez. Ladies and gentlemen, let us proceed to our third speaker. Our third speaker is Mr. Chandra Arora. He is currently the procurement specialist responsible to provide procurement advice and support to developing member countries in the Pacific region. He is an experienced civil engineer, project manager and procurement specialist and carries 25 years of professional work experience. His expertise is in procurement and contract management of high-value contracts in large infrastructure projects, project management and portfolio management. Without further ado, let us hear the presentation by Mr. Chandra Arora. Mr. Arora, over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Lina, and thank you, Rodrigo. Distinguished dignitaries from Government of Malaysia, Martrade, and ADB. Good morning to all of you, and ladies and gentlemen, those who are participating. My name is Chandra Arora. I am a procurement specialist in Procurement Division 2 in Asian Development Bank, and I would take you through the ADB's procurement policy and the processes and where you can find ADB's business opportunities So with that, I will start my presentation. So Ms. Lina, can my presentation is visible?
Yes, yes, but you have to
Okay.
turn into view
Yeah,
slideshow.
sure,
Right,
sure.
thank you.
So just to save the bandwidth, I will switch off my video.
Okay.
Because sometimes, yeah. So is that okay now?
Yes, but not yet in this view mode.
Yes, now?
Okay, yeah, now it's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
All right.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. We hear you.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you very much. So overview of my presentation is first overview of ADB and its operations, top suppliers in ADB projects for works, goods and consulting services, and then top suppliers from Malaysia and ADB's procurement policy and the framework. Then next, ADB procedures for procurement of consulting services and goods and works, and bidding strategies, do and don'ts when preparing bids for ADB funded procurement opportunities, how to find information on business opportunities in ADB projects, and identifying opportunities, especially relating to COVID-19 responses related projects. Just a brief about ADB. Probably many of you already know ADB was founded in 1966 with its headquarters in Manila in Philippines, and currently it has 67 member countries, 49 regional and 19 non-regional countries, and out of them 41 are the borrowing member countries. And to support its clients, ADB works with private sector, NGOs and community-based organizations, foundations, academia and think tanks, other multilateral donors and international organizations. And the main instruments it uh, provides assistance to its member countries is loans or grants, technical assistance, equity, and guarantees. And the biggest ADB borrowers in 2019 were India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Indonesia. And ADB's sovereign portfolio is about 90 billion. And with South Asia having the largest portfolio with 35% of it, around 31 billion. And then next is Central and West Asia, which is about 25% of the total ADB sovereign portfolio and around 23 billion, followed by Southeast Asia, East Asia and Pacific. And the main sectors where our sovereign portfolio is spread is transport, energy, water, agriculture, education and financial sectors and some other smaller sectors. So if we see the difference between 2018 and 19, the transport remained almost similar. 34% it was and 34% now itself. And energy also slightly reduced but remained similar. And agriculture also, like it was earlier 7%, now 6%. Water, it has increased by 1%. So in terms of non-sovereign portfolio, the total ADB non-sovereign portfolio, if we look at it, is in 2019 is 13 billion, and the total committed portfolio, if we see from 2015 to 2019, it started from 7 billion and it has almost doubled in 2019. And it had all the instruments like loans, debt securities, guarantees, and equities. ADB came up with strategy 2030, which is a long-term, strategic framework with 7 operational priorities. We call it strategy 2030. And those priorities was addressing remaining poverty and reducing inequalities, accelerating progress in gender equality, climate change, building climate and disaster resilience, and environmental sustainability, and more livable cities, rural development and food security, and strengthening governance and institutional capacity, and last but not the least, fostering regional cooperation and integration. And all these operational priorities were also aligned with sustainable development goals. Just statistics. Who are the top 5 countries when it comes to supplies in ADB funded projects? So the top goods suppliers by member states are, if we see the top slots are between People Republic of China or India. And also in 2018, Bangladesh was at the second slot. The other countries which were in the top 5 in these last 4 years were Sweden, USA, Indonesia, and Turkey, and Bangladesh, Vietnam, and Hong Kong. So when it comes to works contracts, we can again see a trend here. The top 5 countries, the first 2 slots were occupied were either People's Republic of China or India. And then the other countries were Korea, Bangladesh, Germany, Indonesia, Pakistan, and Vietnam. They have been, their positions have been changing among 3rd, 4th, and 5th countries. In terms of top consulting service providers by the member states, if we look at the last 4 years trend, the Australia, Korea, India, and USA, these were the top slot holders. Last year in 2020, USA was the largest shareholder of consulting services contracts, and Korea at the 2nd slot, and India at the 3rd, with Indonesia and Australia at 4th and 5th. In terms of top goods suppliers by name in last 4 years, the BEML from India secured 3 contracts worth $712 million, and then ABB Group secured 10 contracts worth $292 million, and then TBEA secured 6 contracts worth $227 million, and then followed by China National Technical Import and Export Corporation and Progress Rail Locomotive. And top 5 contractors for the works in the last 4 years, from 2017 to 20, Larsen & Toubro L&T from India secured 28 contracts worth almost $1 billion. Siemens, China Railway Construction, Hyundai, and Acciona Construction Philippines, they were at the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th in terms of top 5 contractors. Top 5 consulting services firms in the last 4 years were SMEC, Australia, which secured 34 contracts around about $150 million. Aegis International from France secured around 32 contracts worth $85 million, followed by TY Lin from USA, and then Ove Arab and Korea Consultants International Limited. The top suppliers and contractors from Malaysia, this will be of interest of you. The total supplies were around $30 million in last 4 years. And if we see the name of the firm, the Pestec SDN BHD, energy sector secured around $24 million contracts. Leader cable industry Berhard secured again in the energy sector with $3.2 million. Power Code and Polyware, water supply and urban infrastructure, it is $2.26 million. Chip Nagai Engineering Works and Gorasia Industries were at the 4th and 5th rank. Top 5 consulting services providers from Malaysia in last 4 years were Min Consult, SD and PhD in education, energy, transport and water and urban infrastructure sector with $28 million contracts. MediConsult secured contracts worth $1.31 million. And then it's high level technology. And World Fish Center, IEN consultants, Green Growth, and again, certain individual consultants were able to secure contracts worth $4.83 million. So why we request all of you to pursue for ADB finance contracts? It provides a gateway to new opportunities in fast growing emerging economies across multiple sectors. Availability of funds is assured through ADB's line of credit. Once ADB's board of directors or ADB's management approves any project, so the availability of funds is assured. Internationally accepted procurement procedures are used. Risks related to transparency, fairness, and integrity of the procurement processes is mitigated through ADB's oversight at different stages of the procurement. If we look at the ADB's project cycle, we can easily see where are the points where the private sector is engaged, either in the form of consultants or in the form of contractors. So when ADB prepares the country partnership strategy or regional cooperation strategy, so we usually employ individual consultants. When we prepare the project concepts and we start preparing the projects in terms of feasibility studies and in terms of preparing to submit for ADB's management, doing the due diligence on technical side, safeguard size. So we recruit consulting firms and individuals both, depending upon the need. And then once the project is approved, it goes to implementation. So then different type of consultants, suppliers and contractors are utilized. Usually the consultants will be design and construction supervision, project management consultants, or the goods suppliers or the works contractors. And then once the project is closed, ADB does the post evaluation of all those projects to see how successful those projects were in achieving those intended objectives, or what improvements could have been required, or what lessons were learned. So during that evaluation stage also, ADB recruits consulting firms and individuals depending upon the situation. What type of opportunities we can expect in ADB funded projects? We have supply of goods. Usually it will be machineries, equipment, computers, furnitures, and then we have civil works. We will have usually civil works related to roads, highways, railways, bridges, irrigation canals, schools, power plants, pumping stations, water treatment plants, heating plants, airports. Then comes to consulting services, as just now I have explained. Almost all our projects would require either individual consultants or consulting firms or both. And these consulting services will be required for construction supervision, project management consultants, detailed design, or preparing the knowledge products, or sometimes ADB recruits staff consultants to supplement its own staff capacity. Then last but not the least, the non-consulting services, which are recruited usually for surveys, trainings, event management, those kind of services which do not require a very high level of expertise. These might be of routine nature of services requiring more physical inputs. ADB's procurement framework. ADB came up with its new procurement framework in 2017. So we call it ADB procurement policy, and we have borrowers procurement regulations in 2017. So before that, we had two different guidelines, one for procurement of goods and works. You can see on the slide the red book, and the other was for the ADB guidelines on the use of consultants, which was the green book. So now the projects which are being approved in terms of concept papers on or after 1st July 2017, they follow 2017 procurement policy and the procurement regulations. But some of the old projects where the concept papers were approved before July 2017, they still use the old procurement guidelines. When it comes to what is new in the new procurement framework, so we earlier had 4 core procurement principles: fairness, economy, efficiency, and transparency. The new procurement framework added 2 more very important procurement principles: quality and value for money. The roles and responsibilities in the procurement is very clearly defined when it comes to the procurement in ADB funded projects. The borrower or executing agency is responsible to procure most of the goods, works, and services. ADB also procures some of the services to support its borrowers through technical assistance and staff consultants. ADB has oversight role to review the procurement actions of the executing agency or the borrowers to ensure that whatever procurement has taken place, it complies with ADB's procurement policy and the procurement regulations. The most preferred option is open competitive bidding with technical and financial bid elements in it. We have a suite of ADB standard procurement documents, and these are readily available on our website. And these procurement documents which are available on websites are standard pre-qualification documents, the bidding documents for the goods, works, plant, design, supply, install, information technology products and services, which is newly prepared, design, build, operate, DBO, which is again a new product and which was prepared in about 2 years back. Request for quotations for goods and works, consulting services, and non-consulting services. So non-consulting services is again relatively the new type of services which have been added in 2017 procurement policy. When it comes to anti-corruption in ADB funded projects, all the stakeholders in ADB procurement processes are expected to observe the highest standards of ethics. And to that effect, ADB has its own anti-corruption policy and guidelines. And ADB has zero tolerance for anti-corruption aspects. And from time to time, through our standard documents and through our oversight role, ADB tries to ensure that ADB anti-corruption policy and guidelines are followed. Now I will quickly explain what are the brief processes about consulting services, and then I will take you through the works and goods. So ADB usually recruits two types of consultants, consulting firms and individual consultants. And then ADB also recruits staff consultants for its own use to supplement staff capacity from ADB's staffing budget. These recruitments may be national or international category. Internationals may be from any ADB member country from those 68 member countries. A firm is national if legally incorporated in developing member country. An individual is national if it is a citizen of developing member country. And when we recruit consulting firms for consulting assignments, it follows a typical process. The detailed TOR and budget is prepared first, and then expression of interest is advertised. Then the shortlisting of firms is done, and those shortlisted firms are invited to submit the request for proposal, which is just like tendering in goods and works. And then once those proposals are submitted, they will be evaluated and the contract will be negotiated. And then once the contract is signed, it goes for contract management. So these are the methods to recruit consulting firms: quality and cost-based selection. Second is the quality-based selection. Third, consultants qualification selection, CQS, and then fixed budget selection, FBS, and then least cost selection and direct contracting. But the most preferred selection method in all ADB funded consulting services assignment would be quality and cost-based selection, unless any other selection method is justifiable to use, given the circumstances or the needs of the project. Brilliant points on the firm's recruitment processes. All opportunities are advertised on the consultant management system, and a shortlist is also published. 3 types of technical proposals are requested: either full technical proposal, simplified, or biodata technical proposal, depending upon the need of the assignment. Use of standard request for proposal, focus on quality in evaluation is always ensured. And then TOR may be either input based or output based, or it could be hybrid. And the contracts could be time based or lump sum, or again, it could be a combination of time based and lump sum, depending upon the need of the assignment. CMS, consultant management system, is used for ADB's consulting services under ADB's technical assistance services, and executing agencies systems are used for loans and grants. And others requirements are member country eligibility and the debriefing to the non-selected consultants, and ADB review at different different stages of consultant selection. These are the few pointers to keep in mind when you approach ADB consulting contracts. Identify suitable entry points and look to build expertise. So look at your expertise and look at what is the requirement of the assignment, and then see where you can participate, and also keep an eye what kind of opportunities are advertised, and if you want to build expertise in those areas is also helpful. Consider individual consulting opportunities as well, both for the firms and for the freelance consultants. Know your clients and its expectations. It is very important that we know the client and then understand context and background to the project. Leverage experience with similar institutions. Identify partners who will add value in terms of joint venture or in terms of associates. Sometimes the one consulting firm may not have expertise for the entire assignment. So in those cases, joint venture or association might be quite helpful. Understand cost of doing business. understand the tax and duties structure of the country where the assignment will be conducted. And it will always be helpful to prepare the financial proposal and ensure that all the cost of doing business is covered in the financial proposal. Consider if external specialists will strengthen the team. Ask questions from the employer or the executing agencies in case of any doubt. So usually the pre-proposal conferences or the pre-bid conferences will happen, and one can always ask questions if there is any doubt. In terms of goods and works, so I'll explain now the processes. What are the main key processes? The procurement processes for goods and works, if we see, these are the 4 steps: the planning stage, the bidding stage, evaluation, and contracting. So at the stage of planning, the strategic procurement planning document is prepared with the procurement plan consisting of all the packages which will be procured during the life of the project. And then next comes bidding out those packages. So this will involve preparation of the bidding documents, amendments to the bidding documents in terms of addendums and corrigendums, and extension of bid periods, and then bids have to be submitted by the deadlines. Then comes evaluation. Once the bids are submitted, they have to be evaluated. During evaluation, maybe bid validity period if required to be extended, or once the bid evaluation is completed, the contract negotiations, or in certain cases it might lead to cancellation or rebidding. Then comes the post bid evaluation contract award, contract signing, and then the management of those contracts, and if there is any complaint. So ADB oversight is involved at all these 4 stages: planning, bidding, evaluation, and contracting. ADB procurement methods, just like consulting services, we also have procurement methods. The open competitive bidding is the most preferred method with international advertisements, and then limited competitive bidding, request for quotation, framework agreements, electronic reverse auction, direct contracting, force account, and few others like procurement from specialized agencies like UN agencies or like WHO, or those who have edge in certain type of procurements. Procurement in fragile and conflict affected and emergency situations, and use of procurement agents, procurement of high level technologies. So these are the different procurement methods we use. Few points in goods and works procurement process. We have user guides for goods and works and different type of kind of goods and works, especially large works, small works, goods, design, build and operate, design, supply, install, plant. So we have, for easy understanding of our borrowers and executing agencies, we have user guides for each of these standard bidding documents with the guidance to provide how to prepare these bid documents. International and national advertisement depending upon the complexity and the market. All these bidding opportunities will be either internationally or nationally advertised depending on the size, complexity, and the market situation. Then different range of bidding procedures are provided in our procurement regulations. It could be 1 stage 1 envelope, 2 stage 2 envelope, 2 stage, or 1 stage 2 envelope. Evaluation criteria can be a pass-fail based qualification requirement, or it could be a merit point based scoring system, or hybrid. And ADB review could be either on a prior review basis or post review sampling basis, depending upon the due diligence done in the planning stage when we decide the procurement plan and do the procurement risk assessment of those executing agencies. Advanced contracting and advanced procurement actions are always possible, meaning before the loan is approved and signed between the executing agency or the borrower and ADB, the advanced contracting can always happen. But it does not commit ADB to finance the project. The new addition in our procurement regulations are abnormally low bids. So how to treat abnormally low bids and how we do the due diligence to ensure or categorize that some bid is abnormally low bid. And then comes debriefing and complaints. Again, here are some common mistakes which bidders or suppliers will do. So these are just being shared to ensure that these are not committed during the bid preparation and submission. So usually bids are not signed or bids are signed by a person who is not authorized signatory. So the bid documents require a submission of power of attorney or a resolution from the management of a company to authorize a person to sign and submit the bid. No bid security or bid securing declaration. Usually the bids should accompany or submitted with either the bid security or the bid security declaration as per the bid document requirement. If there is no bid security or bid security declaration, bid securing declaration, then the bids may be rejected. Insufficient amount of bid security or incorrect validity period. So therefore, when the bid documents are issued, all the bidders are required to go through the entire bid document to see these requirements and then adhere to those requirements, what is clearly mentioned in the bid document. Lack of supporting documents, such as sometimes the bids are not accompanied by JV agreements if it's a JV bidder, audited financial statement, past performance certificates from past employers, which will be required by the executing agency to do the evaluation of bids and ensure that the bidder have those previous experiences as required by the bid documents. Incomplete bids or the partial bids, absence of test reports if required as per the bidding documents, conflicts of interest if it is not disclosed, inclusion of financial offer with technical offer, with where bid conditions required them to be separated, especially in single stage 2 envelope or 2 stage 2 envelope processes where the technical and financial bids are required to be submitted separately, but if they are submitted together, they can be liable for rejection. ADB also has debriefing and complaints procedure. The unsuccessful bidders or the consultants may request debriefing from the procuring entity or ADB. If they are not satisfied with the given explanation, they may submit a complaint formally. To our understanding, debriefings are a very good opportunity for bidders or the consultants to understand where they were short in terms of qualification requirement, or they can strengthen their weak areas if they know what was the reason why their proposal or the bids were not selected for contract award. So next time when they prepare the bid, they can keep those aspects in their mind. Complaints, the bidder may file complaints directly with ADB or may copy ADB on correspondence with the EA. And there are online forms also available to submit the complaints. And also if somebody wants to report the fraud, so ADB also has a section on its website to report the fraud. How to find information and opportunities about ADB funded contracts. So we have a business center on our website where we have a section called Work with Us. And then we have a business center, and then operational procurement and projects and tenders. So you can click any of these links if you are interested in looking for opportunities in ADB funded projects. So when we go to ADB Business Center, there are Q&As and how to access or how to approach ADB funded contracts for contractors and suppliers. There are ADB procurement policy and regulations available there. One can download freely. There is a different kind of guidance notes are available, and the different kind of standard bidding documents are also available, and different kind of forms which ADB follows. It also has section on project and tenders. So if you are straight away wanting to go to the sections called project and tenders, you can look at specific tenders which are out right now in terms of notices available to submit their bids. So when we go to operational procurement, we have access to procurement plan, advanced actions, the projects which are not yet approved, but there are some opportunities under those projects will be posted under advanced contracting notices under advanced action. And we also have list of pre-qualified contractors which is regularly published if any of the project is following the pre-qualification. And the contract award information is also regularly published, and the bidding procedures are also explained. If we go to the projects and tenders tab, we have different kind of filters available if you look at the left side. So we can search any projects or tenders by fine-tuning our search either by country or by sector. And then we can find projects in those sectors or in those countries, and the documents and the procurement plans or the specific procurement notices. If any of the consultants or the bidders or the suppliers are interested in identifying opportunities or wanting to know what kind of particular sectors will be in focus for a particular country, so it is always good and useful to access country partnership strategy, country operation business plan, COBP, which is also available on our website freely. One can download for all the countries which are our borrowing member countries. We also have readily available project procurement plans, advanced notices, specific notices. So if we go to the tab where we work, we can access CPS and COBP, which is a rolling pipeline of 3 years of next 3 years of projects and the sectors in a particular country, and we can download. So the bidders operating in particular sectors can find these documents very useful. And in terms of procurement plan, again, we can refine our search by country or by sector, and we can look at particular procurement plans in those sectors or in those countries. And then we can focus on those opportunities which the bidders are targeting. These procurement plans are updated periodically. All the consulting firms or individuals are required to register in ADB's consultant management system. So if you want to register as a consulting firm or as an individual consultant, both the facilities are available on ADB's consultant management system, and you can register yourself. And you can also look for opportunities in CMS once you are registered. So you can tailor your search either by sector or by country. And if you see right now, there are a lot of assignments which are published under the projects which are attending to COVID-19 related, assignments. So that special filter is also been created if you are interested to participate in projects which are having opportunities especially related to COVID-19 aspects. And if you see on the right hand side column in the CSRN, once we click, we can see the CSRN notices. And we have all the details available, the eligibility considerations, and what sector, what is the budget, and also you can decide whether you want to participate alone or in association or in joint venture, whether you have capacity to compete and deliver, you have the technical experience required as per the TOR, and also the geographical experience and what value addition you can bring to a particular assignment. And then for goods and works, specific procurement notices, if we go to the tenders tab, again we have a filtering mechanism, country, sector, and if we are looking for whether pre-qualification opportunities or IFB or advanced notices or awarded contracts. So we can search, we can fine tune our search to get the desired results. And then both consulting firms and the bidders can register for alerts. Once you register for alerts and once you provide your preferred area or sector where you are operating, so and if you have given your email address, so the alerts will come to you through email. So we call it subscriber services, and it is a very useful, it's a very useful opportunity for all the consulting firms and the bidders to register themselves as and subscribe for the services for alerts. COVID-19 related opportunities, as Mr. Rustam just said, in last 1.5 years since the onset of pandemic in last March or February. So ADB has come up many projects to fight this COVID-19 pandemic in terms of immediate responses to fight this pandemic in many member countries. So those COVID-19 related projects are separate COVID-19 related assignments can be filtered, and if somebody is interested to submit their proposals or the bids for COVID-19 related response projects, those are also accessible in CSRN. For more information, you can go to our website, or we have a LinkedIn group, and we have a ADB Business Center also in the LinkedIn group. And thank you. So I would be happy to answer any questions from the participants.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chandra Arora. Wow, that is a very comprehensive and very informative presentation. I do hope participants are able to digest the information. And once again, if you have any questions, please type in the chat box. Before we proceed to Q&A, I would like to invite Mr. Muhammad Rida Mohsin for a short remark. Mr. Muhammad Rida is the Director's Advisor, Board of Director for Brunei Darussalam, Malaysia, Myanmar, Nepal, Singapore and Thailand. His main responsibility is to provide strategic, policy and operational advice to the Executive Director and alternate Executive Director. Mr. Rida, over to you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I hope I could be heard very well and my presentation could be seen as portrayed.
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Let me begin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning to everybody. Please allow me to take this opportunity to introduce our constituency office. As what Mr. Chandra updated in his presentation, ADB was established in 1966, and currently the bank has 68 member countries, which are also the shareholders of these development financial institutions. Malaysia, like many others, was one of the founding members of the ADB. Constituency Office 8, or better known as Suite 8, is the office that looks after the development interests of 6 member countries, which include Brunei, Malaysia, Myanmar, Nepal, Singapore, and as well as Thailand. Suite 8 is managed by one executive director and alternate executive director, 2 directors advisors, and 3 highly committed national staff. Currently, Suite 8 is under the leadership of Executive Director Dr. Warothai Kosol from Thailand. Based on the agreed rotation scheme of the Executive Director, Malaysia will assume the position in coming October. Suite 8 remains steadfast in bridging engagement between ADB and its constituency member countries. Ladies and gentlemen, being a member of ADB allows Malaysia to leverage and tap procurement opportunities. Mr. Rustam might want to correct me. In 2020, ADB contract awards reached $10.2 billion, or equivalent to 40 billion ringgit Malaysia. On top of procurement opportunity, Malaysia should also consider moving up their professional career with this pristine multilateral development institution. However, despite this procurement opportunity, in 2020, total procurement awarded to Malaysian companies remained low at only $15.2 million, or less than 1% of the total procurement. Like what suggested by Mr. Abu Bakar in his opening remarks, we also hope this business opportunity seminar will be a catalyst to attract more Malaysian companies to tap and leverage this opportunity in the near future. Although ADB channeled much of its fund to sovereign borrowers, however, private sector operation remain important as part of ADB overarching development agenda. In 2020, ADB successfully committed $4.5 billion, or equivalent of around 18 billion ringgit Malaysia. Private sector investment for 38 projects in critical sectors such as health, agriculture, energy, finance, water, and other urban infrastructure and services. I'm extremely glad today, in addition to procurement, we also have the opportunity to listen to presentation from ADB Private Sector Operation Department, and as well as from the Regional Department on ASEAN Catalytic Green Finance Facility Fund, or ACGF. Before I end, on behalf of Suite 8 and ED Warothai, I cannot thank enough to Mr. Rustam Abu Kayyumov and Mr. Chandra Arora from PPFD, Yoshiro Yoi-san from PSOD, and Mr. Rodrigo Fermin Martinez from the Southeast Asia Regional Department for giving a priority to this seminar. Last but not least, special thanks to the organizer, the Malaysian External Trade Development Corporation, MATRID, and Malaysian Embassy in the Philippines. In particular to Ms. Siti Azlina, Muhammad Ali Hanafia, and Mr. Irvin Francis from Madrid office in Manila for initiating this insightful seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad Rida. Thank you. Your office has always been helpful to us, advising us and connect us to different departments within the ADB. Well, now we move to a Q&A session. I have one question here. Maybe it's directed to Mr. Yoshiro Yoi. What are the typical fees and rates for ADB loans compared with commercial banks or sukuk bond options? Mr. Yoshiro?
Yes, thank you for that question. So in terms of terms and conditions of our financial products, we operate similarly to commercial financial institution, meaning that we base our pricing and fee proposals based on risks. There's no sort of set rates. We look at the projects or we look at the transaction, we analyze the risk, and we price it in accordance with the risk. Therefore, what we aim to do is to stay close as possible to the commercial financing market. We don't want to be too much lower than that, and neither do we want to be too much higher than that. Again, it depends on the specifics of the project and its risk profile. So if you have any sort of concrete project in mind, then I would suggest we discuss offline on the details. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yoshiro. All right, another question. I think this question is either to be answered by Mr. Rustam or Mr. Chandra. It's from Mr. Chi Pia Wong. He said that I am an academic, a medical specialist and ADB consultant through previous engagement. I have prepared a proposal to implement a digital healthcare platform across ASEAN countries. This is a new digital and data-driven healthcare model. Part of this is social entrepreneur in nature to develop the healthcare in the region. And the other important objective is to enable and kickstart traveling and business activities amid COVID pandemic within the ASEAN region as soon as possible. These can be upscaled to other countries. The question is, how do I engage ADB as a first step to explore the merit of this project for funding?
Thank you, Mrs. Lin. Maybe I can answer that. You hear me?
Yes, clear. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is a very good proposal, and we have to understand that after the COVID pandemic, there were many efforts on trying to see how countries can strengthen their healthcare systems and how they could introduce some innovations. So there are many proposals coming from different countries. Some countries have already introduced in their systems and trying to basically expand this to other countries. Some of these ideas are still at the kind of development stage and will require maybe more efforts to assess the feasibility of that. But my view is that this is something which everybody is trying to focus on and learn. So ADB will be open to consider those proposals, and I would suggest that since we have already so many projects approved that are aimed at improving the healthcare systems in many countries, some are additional financing, meaning that there was an ongoing project, but the government requested more funds from ADB exactly to address these kind of concerns. Some projects are absolutely new. And we also have so-called the CPRO projects, right? This is budget support for several countries who decided to borrow from ADB to strengthen not only the healthcare system, but also the overall public finance management system. I would suggest to check on ADB websites all projects which are tagged under COVID-19. So if you go to CMS and you do the search, we have introduced a new function. You have to tag, there is a question, are you looking for any kind of project or only COVID related? If you tag, click yes on COVID related, this search will demonstrate all projects, whether it is technical assistance, small grants, or loan projects which are related to COVID. And then I think the next step would be to contact the project officer, because for each project there will be a name of project officer, and initiate this discussion. Because if it is a loan project, there might be already some ideas incorporated in the project, but still it doesn't mean that we cannot look at the new options. So this would be my initial recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rustam. Okay, the next question, I think the two next question can be answered by Mr. Rustam as well. Is ADB finance housing projects? Or maybe Mr. Yushiro-san, I'm not pretty sure.
The short answer is yes. We had a few projects which are aimed at affordable housing, but this is not very common, to be honest, in ADB pipeline. And it is not because ADB is not willing to finance, because you all understand that we work based on the country strategy, which is agreed with the borrowing country. So if the government is willing to basically implement projects in this housing sector, so we will consider. So far, I remember there are maybe only 2 countries where we financed that. And I'm talking about sovereign operations. I'm not aware of a non-sovereign part. Maybe colleagues from PSOD can share the views, because that's more kind of a commercial thing. What we were financing under a sovereign part, it was, I want to emphasize, affordable housing. So it's not the luxury apartments, it's basically housing which would address the immediate needs of people maybe in the rural areas who have less access to proper housing with the proper sanitation, water, and electricity. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Yeah, let me add from the private sector side. As Rustam mentioned, also on private sector side, it is theoretically possible for us to do affordable housing. Obviously, not the luxurious ones, because there's no kind of development impact for luxurious housing. But for affordable housing, it is something that we would like to support. However, in terms of doing the business, I think providing housing mortgages to each kind of consumers or individuals is not sort of suitable for our business model, both in terms of the number of transactions, because we can't deal with hundreds of or thousands or even millions of individuals who are looking for financing for housing, and also in terms of credit, or in terms of taking credit risk of those individuals. So what we sort of typically do if we want to be in this space is we deal with the local financial institutions. So local banks provide, obviously provide housing loans to the extent that they see fit for that particular client. We can provide funding to that financial institutions to kind of back finance in a sense the many housing loans that they can do with the funding. So that's how we tend to address the needs of affordable housing. But it is rare. I think we've done some in India. We've done we've signed a deal in Indonesia with a local Indonesian bank, but I don't think that was much used. So sometimes it's the usage varies. I'm not quite sure if that answers the questions, but that would be my answer. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Yushiro, there's another question addressed to you. What are the difference between loan, co-financing, and LEAP, L-E-A-P? Are these financings available in local currency or only in US dollars?
Yeah, thank you. So loan, debt instrument. There's sort of we can do loans, debt instruments. We sometimes have we sometimes do mezzanine financing, somewhere in between equity and debt. We can also do equity, but on a rather sort of comparatively limited LEAP, that's a good catch. LEAP is a trust fund that is set up within with the private sector operations department of ADB, and the fund is provided by JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency. It's an aid agency set up by the Japanese government. So they put in money with us, and what it does is, when ADB does, when ADB provides financing, be it debt or loans or equity investment, then we can kind of bring in that some money from LEAP on a parallel basis, meaning that terms and conditions will be exactly the same as the loans or the equity investment provided by ADB from its own capital. So it enables us to increase the ticket size of ADB in that transaction. Now, the other aspect of that question was the local currency. Yes, we do local currencies. For example, in Thailand, we've done Thai baht transaction. In China, we've also done the local currency. Nowadays, we also have capabilities in Indonesia, and our capabilities kind of depends on a couple of things. One is the sophistication of swap markets, because sometimes swap markets is the only funding source we have for local financing, local currency financing. The other one is whether the systems, the regulation and market is suitable for ADB to issue local currency bonds. So, for example, in Indonesia, we have issued Komodo bonds, and that provided us, quite a competitive funding in Indonesia rupiah. Now, Malaysia, again, coming back to my presentation, the general financing market is quite deep in Malaysia. So we think we can procure Malaysian ringgit if we wanted to. Quite a long tenor. So the tenor can be up to something like 18 or 19 years. That's obviously only from the funding perspective. Not that I'm suggesting that I can provide 18 or 19 years loan to every single project. That depends on the commercial risks or any other risks that the project entails. But on the funding side, I think we can go up to 18 to 19 years for ringgit. Many other markets have different sort of availability of local currency for us. Again, Thailand, very long swap market available, more than 20 years. So Thai baht is fairly sort of common. But on the flip side, where the swap market, US dollar versus the local currency swap market is deep, is where the local banks are sophisticated and quite competitive. So that kind of offsets our ability to compete in local currency. Not that we want to compete. That's not our job, but to be effective or relevant in the market, it kind of depends on two forces. One is availability of local currency, and one is the how strong the local financing market, the commercial banks are active. So yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Yoi. All right, the next question, it's with regards to COVID-related business opportunities. The question is pretty long. I just summarize here. Aside from project-based procurement, can you clarify on the current methods that ADB has adopted in procuring COVID supplies? For example, is there a bank-facilitated procurement method on behalf of the countries to fast-track the process or through UN agencies as procuring partners to achieve economies of scale. Other banks have done both for the past. So perhaps maybe Mr. Chandra or Mr. Rustam may reply.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's both in COVID-19, mostly the procurement of PPEs were procured either through shopping or request for quotations, or if the sizes were big, they were following the open competitive bidding with compressed bid preparation time for the faster delivery. And also another opportunity, as this gentleman has said, that many of the UN agencies were also used if they had expertise in those areas, like especially these PPEs and now especially in vaccines. So both the systems are available, and wherever depending upon the need and the circumstances of the project and of the borrower. So either the borrower themselves procure, or they can use the UN agencies, or both request for quotation or the competitive bidding. Both are available.
Okay, thank you. Well, we have another final question. This is a very short one. Will ADB cover for project in Middle East like Qatar?
Yeah, I can answer this question. The ADB finance or provide assistance to only developing member countries who are the member of ADB. So Qatar is not ADB member country, but Kazakhstan is our member country, and most of our Central Asian countries are our member countries. So unfortunately, the Gulf countries are not our member, and therefore the Qatar is not where the ADB financing project.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you to all our speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our event today. Before we dismiss, I would like again to invite all Malaysian companies, as mentioned by Mr. Rustam earlier, ADB will be organizing annual meeting 2021 from May 3 to May 5 with the theme of collaboration for resilient and green recovery. So those who are interested to join, please click and register yourself at the stipulated address. And once again, to all our participants, please fill in our feedback form. You can either click the QR code or you can respond to email sent by our team in Kuala Lumpur. So once again, thank you very much to all our speakers from ADB, and thank you very much to all the participants for being so attentive till the end of the program. And until we meet again, have a good day ahead and stay safe. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Ms. Lina. Thank you all the organizers, and thank you all the participants.
Stay safe, Mr. Chandra.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much to all.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you all the speakers. Thank you.